welcome to Pink Cake Princess. I'm Andrea and today I'm going to do another frozen treat for you guys. I'm going to show you how to make Kristoff's frozen ice cube jellies. Perfect for a frozen themed party. You can check out more at the end of this video. Here are the ingredients. You'll need some water, some sugar, some blue food colouring and a packet of agar agar setting agent, which you can get from your local Asian supermarket. Now in a big pot I'm going to mix in my water with my sugar and bring it to a simmer. Once it's all dissolved I'm going to add in my setting agent, which is the agar agar powder, and I'm going to whisk that through until it thoroughly mixes and dissolves. That's going to take about 5-10 minutes. So I'm whisking to make sure everything's mixed through. I'm going to check with my spoon to make sure that there's no crystals in the water. Now I've removed it from heat and I'm going to add in my blue food colouring and stirring it through with my spoon. I'm going to pour it into my containers. I'm using a couple of my cake tins. And I'm removing the bubbles on the surface with my spoon. Don't forget to click the like button below if you're liking this tutorial and click add to favourites to save the recipe. Now I've covered it in cling wrap and I've let it set overnight. And now I'm using my palette knife or a knife just to help me get it out of the mould. Now I'm going to use my knife just to cut it into shapes of ice cubes. What is your favourite jelly type recipe? Comment and share with me below. Now all I've got to do now is lift up the individual jelly ice cubes and place them onto a lovely serving tray. And that's it. That's my Kristoff's ice cubes for a frozen party. Hope you guys like it. Don't forget to
Hey guys, today I'm making another flower cake for you. This time I'm using Swiss meringue buttercream to create a gorgeous chrysanthemum cake. I really love this flower and so many of you loved seeing it on our succulent cake, so I thought I'd turn it into a whole cake like our rose and our petal cake designs. So I've covered a 7-inch round cake in some green Swiss meringue buttercream. And I've divided up the remainder of that batch into 4 bowls and I'm going to tint that into some gorgeous shades of pink. Lots of you have been requesting to see how I colour my Swiss meringue buttercream, so I thought that this would be the perfect time to show you how. To do that you need some gel food colour, some Flow Coat. I've placed some already into a Tupperware container. You're also going to need a spatula and a toothpick. Later on we're going to need some piping bags and I have a Loyal number 80 tip. So I'm going to take some of our gel food colour. It does still take quite a lot to be able to get it to combine with the Swiss meringue. And I'm just going to use the toothpick to stir it around. I'm just doing this because it's easy to throw it out as soon as you're done. Now I'm going to add just a little bit into one of our Swiss meringue buttercream batches and just stir that to combine. Then take some more of our Swiss meringue and add in a bit more colour to the next one. Mix it into your third colour and then the fourth. And now you can see we have 4 gorgeous different shades of our same pink. Just using a cookie cutter, I'm going to mark out some circles just like on our rose cake, but this time it's not to line up where the colours are, it's just to keep us nice and circular. Now taking my piping tip and making sure that the curved bit is at the base, come in by about 1 centimetre, press and slowly release. Just squeeze and release. You don't want to try to go too big with these or they'll tend to droop. Squeeze and pull away really slowly. Then starting our second row, you're barely coming in on the cake. trying to leave no gap between the layers. Now you can use a sweet buttercream recipe instead of a meringue, but I do find that you get a nicer curve on the ends with the meringue because it's more pillowy and fluffy. And I just think with this design, it gives you a much nicer finish. Now coming in for a third row. And at this stage, you're still pulling out a fair bit, not completely straight up. Now taking our next colour, just going to do the same. And you can see how adding those circles really help. Now with our next colour, still leaning back just a little bit, but you are starting to get a touch straighter. Now with our last colour, I'm going to squeeze and try to go as straight as you can. Around once. And just keep going until it's all filled in. And there you go, we have our gorgeous mum flower cake. I really love how this turned out with these beautiful shades of pink. I hope that you learnt a lot in this lesson. If you love buttercream flowers, be sure to check out this playlist here. If you'd like to see some of our newest videos.
Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I have another one of my double-sided cakes for you, and this time I'm creating the adorable robot Baymax and Armour Up Baymax, the main character from the new Disney movie Big Hero 6. Today I've teamed up with my super talented friend Francesca from Francesca Sugar Art, and she's going to show you how to create this cake topper of Armour Up Baymax. I'll leave a link to Francesca's tutorial at the end of my video and in the description box below. So let's get started. I'm using 3 8-inch round cakes today, and I've just coloured them with a bit of food colouring in the cake batter. I've got my fondant roller, an offset spatula, a palette knife, a sharp knife and my X-Acto blade, as well as a round cutter. I've got some wafer biscuits here and they're just plain wafers. I've got a couple spare just in case they break while I'm cutting them. I've got some white buttercream frosting, some chocolate ganache, and I've got some red, white and black fondant. I've also got my cake board as well as a round cake setup board. So to start with, I'm just going to smear a little blob of my chocolate ganache onto my cake board just to make sure that the cake setup board is nice and secure. And then again, I'm just going to put another smear of the ganache at the bottom and start to stack my cakes. In between each layer, I'm going to spread some of my buttercream frosting. Now I need to start carving my cake by trimming off the tops and the bottoms. Baymax's head isn't exactly round or oval, it's more of a squashed round. I'm going to trim off a little bit at a time until I get the shape that I'm happy with. Now while Baymax doesn't have any ear-looking antennas on his side of the cake, when he's suited up, Armour Up Baymax does have these antennas on either side of his helmet. So to create those, I'm taking my wafer biscuit and I'm going to cut out a bit of a triangle. To cut the wafer, I'm just gliding my blade over just a couple of times, and then you can see it just easily snaps off with a nice clean cut. Once I've cut both my pieces, I'm just going to slide them into the cake. I'm putting it into the front quarter of the cake, not really in the middle of the cake. This is so that it's not so noticeable from the other side. Now it's time for me to cover the entire cake with my chocolate ganache and then pop it in the fridge for about 15 minutes to set. Once the cake comes out of the fridge, I'm going to smooth over the ganache, and I'm using my offset spatula and dipping it in some boiling water, just wiping off any excess moisture and then gliding it over the ganache. Now I've finished smoothing my cake with my spatula, And I just wanted to show you a little extra trick if you wanted to get your cake even smoother. I've got a clean piece of paper towel here and I've just dipped it in some warm water, and I'm just going to gently smooth the paper towel over the ganache. I'm applying just enough pressure to smooth out any bumps in the ganache, and you can see on my paper towel that really there's not much chocolate coming off the cake. This is a really good technique to use to get into tricky corners of a cake. So I'm pretty happy with my cake now, and the surface is just moist enough and ready for me to start covering the cake with my fondant. I'm going to start on the side for Armour Up Baymax, so I've rolled out some red fondant and just cut off a straight edge at the bottom. And I'm going to carefully roll my fondant onto my roller and then drape it over the cake, making sure that I've got my fondant covering the antennas as well. Then it's just a matter of opening up the fondant and smoothing it around the cake. I'm going to trim off the excess fondant in line with the antennas, so coming up from one side of the cake, over the antennas and down the other side of the cake. For the opposite side of the cake, I'm using some white fondant which I've rolled out. I've neatened the bottom edge, and once I've transferred the fondant onto my roller, I'm going to carefully once again drape it over the cake, making sure I cover the antennas. And then smoothing out the fondant on the sides and the bottom, and trimming off the excess where the white fondant meets the red fondant. Using a little ball of white fondant, I'm just going to rub it over the surface of the cake to achieve a nice smooth finish, and also to massage the white fondant right into the red fondant so that I get a nice join at the seam. I'm going to work on adding the details to the Armour Up side of Baymax. So using my white fondant, I'm going to cut out the space in his helmet from where his eyes look out. And then using a little bit of water on the back, I'm going to adhere it onto the cake. To add some definition to his helmet, I'm going to roll out a few pieces of white fondant into some long snakes, and then using some water I'm going to attach it to the cake to create a few ridges in the helmet. You can create whatever patterns you like here. I need to of course add the eyes for Baymax on both sides, so I've cut out 4 circles using my little round cutter, and I've rolled out 2 snakes with some black fondant, and I'm just going to adhere the eyes to both sides of the cake. Of course, when Baymax does not have his armour on, he doesn't have these white pieces poking out the top of his head, so I'm going to stick a piece of black fondant over the top to act as a camouflage. So here he is guys, my double-sided Baymax cake with his armour and without.